They say that imitation is the best form of flattery. So would Samsung simply bring out a display that looks exactly like the iMacs just to flatter Apple? Or is there something else going on? Welcome back everyone, great to see you again. I'm Tuvia. Today we're going to be focusing on the brand new display that Samsung just released, not launched, but just released, their M8 smart monitor. So to answer that initial question, well, they kind of are targeting the same people, but they also kind of not. Let's get into it. Let's take a look between the differences that Apple have just introduced in their studio monitor versus Samsung's new and latest and greatest monitor. I'll pop them on the screen now. Now that we've gone through some of the details, it's time to answer the questions. So the first point we have to understand is, who are Samsung targeting? And are they targeting the same customers that Apple are targeting with their studio display? And that answer is something very interesting. If we just think back to what Apple have introduced in their studio display, it's very specific, targeting those who really wanted a monitor that suited their needs. Those graphic intense projects, those displays that are bright and powerful and colorful. And if you want some more detail, check out the video I made earlier on with all the different specs and details around the studio display. And in reality, Samsung's display is something completely different. As they market themselves, they're all about that Internet of Things, that smart home hub. And in fact, the differences between them couldn't be greater. Samsung are introducing a consumption hub, a place where you can consume media, but at the same time, it'll act as a monitor for you where you wanted to play games or simply get your work done every day. Versus Apple display, as we mentioned, it's really that display to get people to do the work that they wanted, that graphic intensive work, that high-end stuff just for their high-end users. And so, very different target audiences. And yet, we see the Samsung M8 monitor display could not be similar to the iMac 24-inch with an M1 Mac chip inside. Why is that? That leads us to our second point. The second point is, why would Samsung make a display so aesthetically similar to the iMac? I mean, is it really just a form of imitation? There's got to be something else that Samsung are trying to do here. But before we get into that, it's important to understand the flow of events. Samsung, back in CES in January, actually introduced this display. It had all the colors, doing exactly what they said it would do. It acts as that Internet hub, Internet of Things hub. It acts as that focal point where you can make connections between your other devices to this device and flow throughout your house. And yet, it only started garnering a lot of press when the Apple Studio display was released. Funny, don't you think? There's another point to make. The colors that Samsung chose were a conscious decision. They on purpose chose very similar colors to the iMac. And again, is this simply a form of imitation? I think by now you've realized it probably isn't. And the reason that Samsung do this, and many other companies do this, is something called the halo effect. The halo effect relates to a customer or consumer's decision to either purchase something or choose to use that product in their buying decision because of similar attributes that they've seen in that same product line or in other similar products. Ah, now your brain's kind of thinking. Samsung are smart, they know exactly what they're doing. If the iMac 24-inch that Apple has just introduced in the past 6 months is so well loved, Samsung are going to jump on that bandwagon, get on that halo effect. Go, hey, look at this pretty display we've made. Similar to those iMacs that you love, but it does X, Y, and Z, or it does A, B, and C, things which are totally different. And from a consumer's perspective, you kind of look at it and go, oh, you know what, I need a display, and I'd love something that sits in my house that looks exactly like that iMac, but I'm not an Apple user. Enter in the Samsung M8 smart home display. So now we've understood why Samsung do it. But in reality, there's got to be something else that's going on over here. We've seen Samsung do this with many other products. Take their phones, for example. Do you remember those days when they used to laugh at Apple for not including a charger in their box? Or for getting rid of a home button? Fast forward a few months and you get Samsung doing the exact same thing. And they're for similar reasons. Apple has always been an innovator, but they've also been a leader in terms of what they want to introduce. And Samsung know this. They'd rather let Apple go and do the thing that they're going to do anyway and jump on the bandwagon later on. Because if something's working, you're always going to jump on it. It's a proven thing. Of course Samsung are going to do it. And you can't blame them for that. You're kind of thinking right now that you've seen this in other places. And you're spot on. Samsung have done it with their gestures on their mobile. They've done it on their physical aesthetics of their phones. They've gone from plastic to glass, just like Apple did. And of course, they've introduced something like Samsung Pay, just like Apple did with Apple Pay. And the list goes on and on and on. And the bottom line is, all Samsung are doing are trying to jump on that bandwagon, jump on the halo effect that Apple have done with their products. It's really, really smart and good business. It's probably at this point that you're thinking to yourself, but Tuvia, isn't this just copying? Surely that's illegal. And this brings us to our third point. Jump in, guys, type into Google, of course after you finish watching this video, jump on your local Wish or your Alibaba store and type in the words iPhone 13. I can guarantee you now, you'll be flooded with hundreds of different devices that claim to be an iPhone, but you and I both know they're not an iPhone. That's just one example. You want some more examples? Take a look at the difference between the real Head & Shoulders and a home brand Head & Shoulders. Want another one? Take a look at Nando's versus for Nando's. The bottom line is, it's really smart business to use colors, to use other types of aesthetics, be it the brand, the logo, or as I said, the colors, to try and entice customers to come to your brand. Because at the end of the day, it's things that are in customers' memories that trigger with them those positive attitudes. And if you're trying to introduce a new product or a new brand to market, there's nothing better than jumping on the bandwagon with an incumbent brand who already is doing such a great job with their branding. Because if you're opening a chicken store and your name is Fernando's and it's red and it sells peri peri chicken, you want people to think of Nando's when they think about your brand. Yes, there are other problems down the road with introducing brand equity and how you're going to grow your brand, but to get that product out to market or that brand introduced into an already saturated market, there's nothing better than the halo effect. Because even if it creates bad marketing, it starts conversations, it lets people know about your brand. It creates a sense of acknowledgement that your brand exists. All those things, whether we call it bad publicity, are publicity, and that's what you want when you're starting a new product or a brand. Even down the track, it's a funny conversation started to go. Did you go down to the Fernando's and your friend's like, hey man, didn't you mean Nando's? No man, I meant the Fernando's. What could be funnier? Great conversation starter. So this leads us to our last point. Is it worth using the halo effect for your brand? Or is it just plain old worth copying a font, a color, anything to get people's attention? This goes back to what we were talking about earlier on. It's all about what your objectives are. If you're planning on being vertically aligned to that particular business, then go for it. Think about Apple watch straps. Calling yourself iStrap or Apple Bands, anything like that, it clearly defines what your products are, who you're targeting, and it clearly aligns to the product that you want to be aligned to, being Apple Watches. But on the other hand, if you are a telco and you're introducing some merchant services, those things don't go together. So being aligned to that brand, that color, that telco brand and color, won't necessarily drive the right brand equity into your new upcoming brand. So it's all about being smart, knowing who your target audience is, and knowing what you're trying to achieve in your business. If you found it useful, be that good person, hit the like button, ring the bell, and be sure to watch out for new videos coming soon. Hope you enjoyed it, and as always, do that extra little good deed to bring a little light into the world. Until next time.